Hello and welcome to January 4th, 2022. My name is Kurt and this is my daily Good Life meditation video. This is an exercise that I do every morning just after waking up. It's now 4:32 a.m. Running about 7 minutes late. Seems I'm consistently running about 7 minutes late every morning. Maybe I should call 7 or 4:30 a.m. my new norm. Just taking a little more time. And I think that's okay because one of my objectives is to do things slowly and deliberately and carefully. To that end, I think I'm better prepared once I get to here by 4:30 rather than 4:20. There's no particular reason to do it 4:20, just the habit of what is normal, what seems to be the routine that is developed. It's amazing how that kind of traps us like gluey feet. When in fact, pushing off another 7 minutes as the same overall effect, it doesn't really impact much of anything, but it does leave me in a state of being a better readiness for the exercise to come. Something to remember. Anyway, this is something that I do to recount my 7 objectives, life objectives, and the 33 principles that I use to achieve those. These I call the Good Life. The Good Life Creed is listed in a chapter by the same name in my book, Going Alone. It's the result of having spent most of my life as a periodic adventurer into wild places alone. And what I discovered or didn't discover out there, particularly in the deep desert of California, and then what I did about that seeming non-discovery, the better life that I strive to make as a result. All of that documented and laid out in my book. Available on Amazon, or you can pick it up at a bookstore. If you just ask for it, they'll order it. Or you can buy it from my website, goingalone.org. It's a few more bucks if you buy it from my website. And it'll take a little longer to ship, but you get a signed copy that is hand illustrated on the inside cover and all this, for whatever that's worth. All right, let's begin. And good morning, Parker. First, a sip. I'm back to having a little bit of foam in my coffee from the latte machine. I like it. That's part of what's consuming the extra few minutes. Okay, to start off with, I'm going to think about the last 24 hours, including last night. And I'm going to see how I did with my living and with applying the Good Life tips and tricks to whatever happened along the way of note. Then I'll recite the creed, and then I'll finish with an anticipation of what's to come today, readying myself for the coming 24 hours. So, last night and yesterday. I slept surprisingly good last night. I did wake up maybe half an hour before the alarm, which is very good. I didn't have really anything to think about. I had a very good day at work yesterday. And I think that the inner daemon that likes to prod and poke me knew to be quiet because there's a new sheriff in town. That's a good one right there. Just a second, please. Armed with the new mental discipline and thought technique taught to me by Juan, which I described in yesterday's video. So if you check the January 3rd video, you can learn more about that. Armed with that, the little monster inside of me didn't have much chance. So I think it stayed quiet. I think it's just kind of looking out from its dark cave, trying to figure out what it can do next. So what I did while I was awake was I forecasted the immediate future. I imagined what it was like for the alarm to go off, to feel good about the coming day, even though it's a Wednesday, to be ready to get to do the stuff that I needed to do, to wind up sitting in this chair, hitting that play button or record button and starting to make this video. And then while I was moving through the day, I was continuing to forecast just, an hour ahead, 2 hours ahead into the meetings to come, readying myself for those, etc. To that end, I was doing that all day yesterday. I mean, yesterday was a banner day at work. I got a lot done. My meetings went really well. And I was using this technique through the whole thing, forecasting every meeting, imagining how it was going to work out okay, preparing myself ahead of time, taking control and taking the reins from my otherwise absent-minded wandering thoughts that tend to haul up dregs of disaster, images of disaster, for me to conspire to overcome. I mean, maybe that's a survival technique from the bad old days when we needed to imagine all of those terrible things, because one false move, one broken leg, and you're done. So you can't afford to take any risks beyond the most genuinely necessary. We've moved past that time. We can survive a broken leg now. We can take more genuine risks, more risky risks. I can afford to run into the sea every day. It's not likely it's going to kill me, although the current swept me pretty well yesterday after I plunged in. Right now there's a small hole just about where I plunge in. The waves tend to carve out an uneven bottom at places, and there's a large hole right there. So when I dive in, I go from being waist deep, or just up to my bottom of my bathing suit deep, to over my head deep. It's a deep hole. And there was a rip current pulling out, and a longshore current pulling along the current. When I came up out of the water, I was headed down the current, headed down the beach, had to turn around and swim out. So I can afford that risk. Couldn't afford that risk 100,000 years ago. I bet it all has to do with that. So yesterday I powered through my meetings. I was attentive to my team's channel. I was communicative with our customers. Had a great sponsors meeting, went really well. Things are good. And it's not because things are good. It's because it's because I'm more readily and actively and proactively making things good. In fact, I think my days are kind of starting to resemble the days that Juan enjoys. Juan and I work together, and his reputation is legend. People talk about his meetings. Like they talk about the meetings that Juan runs. People talk about Juan's meetings like some people talk about a good Lakers game. Did you see that? Did you see that seventh inning? I don't know. Is it an inning? I don't know how basketball works. Did you see LeBron, or I don't know any other basketball players? Did you see that shot in the fourth quarter? I don't know. No kidding, Juan. If you see that, I hear that from people. Interesting. All right. And then, so I did that, and then I went to the beach, and it was a cold day, and I jumped in the water anyway, to dam the cold. And then I came home and had a beer, and I sat in here and I read, one of my New Year's resolutions is that I'm going to complete one chapter a day. So I finished a chapter in this book, A Universe from Nothing by Lawrence Krauss. And it was The Free Lunch at the End of the Universe. I think that was the chapter. So I'm moving on. It's an interesting strategy to finish a chapter every day, a chapter of anything. If I need to, I can, in a crunch, I can pull out my Dr. Johnson, because I can finish the chapter here in like 4 pages. But that's intense reading. But anyway, so what that encourages me to do, if my requirement isn't to read a chapter a day, but to finish a chapter a day, I can piecemeal it through the day. During my breaks, when I take the dogs for a walk, during my lunch, instead of sitting and watching a YouTube video, I'll read, because I know that I have a quota to fill. Also, I discovered pacing. Our little place here has a little yard, and there's a little walkway about 25 feet. And it's got 2 steps on the one end and 1 step on the other end, and I can walk up the steps, turn around, come back, walk, up the step, turn around, come back, walk, and just pace. And if I'm moving, I can read all day. I could just literally do all day. And then I would hit the top of the stairs. I was doing this on Sunday during a break in the rain. Put my book down on the dry concrete and do a couple of push-ups, squats, whatever. Keep things moving. Yeah, 2023 is shaping up good. It doesn't mean that it won't go well, and it doesn't mean that horror isn't on the way or already arrived. I think I'm prepared mentally for that, but I don't know if I'm prepared in my heart for the horror just yet. Okay, let's do the good life. My 7 objectives are as follows. And remember, all of these are categorically listed and explained in my book, Going Along. Number 1 is to be always ready to die. This means that I want to have my life things in order, my papers, namely my bank accounts, so that my wife and daughter can sustain and survive after I'm gone. I also want to have my personal relationships in order. And I also want to have my life's work in order. The accounts are in good shape. The personal relationships as best they can be. I did get a call out of the blue from my mom yesterday. I won't gossip about my mom, but I will say it wasn't a nice call. And even though that happened and we're on sour terms again, I would consider that a life affair in order, because that's the best I can do. I don't know. I've never been able to figure out how to have a good relationship with my mom. I reach out to her at regular intervals as infrequently as she will tolerate. She would rather I not contact her too often. And I offer my hand and my time and my help. So that's the best I can do. So yeah, that's in good order. Wife and daughter are good. Co-workers, friends, etc. I think they're all good. My life's work, yeah, my book's done. So the first objective is met, and it's an ongoing work. My second objective is to make good and effective use of my time, to find ways to capitalize on the opportunities of each day, not for greater profit necessarily, but for the improvement of, my yield on virtue. Pardon me. Where I define virtue as being working after whatever improves the well-being of thinking creatures. That's a good use of my time. Of course, I do have to capitalize on capital because I need something to sustain us, especially as Yumiko and I are heading into retirement. I need to make sure that we're going to be safe and cared for in our old age. So I do work on that too. So yeah, I think that one's in good shape too. Number 3 is to develop and maintain good and sound life objectives and principles. That's precisely what I'm doing now as I recite and discuss and tinker with the Good Life Creed. And I think for the most part that's in pretty good shape, although experience has shown that the creed tends to change and improve over time. And I do have one area that I'm actively tinkering with, which is the second to last principle: nothing is enough. I'm not sure about the title of that principle, and I'm not sure about the theme that I'm giving it, which is one of mental self-control. Both are important things. Nothing is enough is a concept reflective of something important to me. But I don't know if that's the right place to put it. I don't know if it needs a principle of its own, and I certainly don't know that mental self-discipline belongs there. It feels like it does. My gut is telling me this is the right configuration. I just haven't quite figured out why that's the case. So I'm tinkering with it. So yeah, that one requires some work. That's number 4. Number 3, that was. Number 4 is to cultivate good emotional reactions. To become, be, and maintain my ability to react well to whatever comes my way. And I'm getting really good at that, if I do say so myself. It's becoming something of a superpower, where life, I'm I'm rather, and I think the appropriate word, I don't really mean to use a fancy word, but I think the right word is I'm becoming unflappable. It's hard to flap me. It's hard to push me out of my equilibrium. Now, I'm sure that there's lots of things that could do that. I just don't encounter them very often. Horror mainly. Yeah, I'm very subject to horror. True, real life horror. But that's the goal, is to have good emotional reactions. I'm getting better at that work too. It's pretty hard for my meetings to go foul without me staying calm and collected and in control. It's interesting how you don't even have to have that skill in very great measure, and it becomes part and parcel of who you are. Gain it in greater degrees, and you become legend, like Juan. The next objective, is to do good things. Just do good things throughout the day to help make the world a better place in every possible way I can. Number 6 is to recognize my true limits and my true opportunities. What is the actual scope of my reach? How far can I grasp and have some sort of an influence? What's beyond me? I'm certainly not going to scheme after the machinations of anything in the Andromeda galaxy. That's quite an example, Kurt. But you get my meaning, right? What's happening in Andromeda is going to happen in Andromeda. There's lots of Andromedas all around us. It's good to recognize what those are, so that I don't get myself messed up in expecting that I can have an outcome where I have no reach, no influence, no business even. Although there's lots of stuff that I can influence, and I want to make sure that I'm applying my attention and my time to those areas. That's the purpose of this objective, to maintain a good understanding of where the boundaries are and keep my focus and my attention and my hard work on the things that are within my control. The last objective is to do just one thing at a time, and do that thing slowly and deliberately and carefully. Just as I'm speaking right now, this is not a natural way of speaking for me. I affect this. I work on this. This is something that I labor to do. And I do the same thing at work now too. And with time, it's becoming who I am. But it's an active effort. And I do this elsewhere in my life as well, in the way that I tackle issues and challenges. I'm more measured and careful and deliberate. And that has a result. And when I forecast now the immediate hour to come, I imagine myself behaving in this way. And it is certainly not disingenuous to model and to exercise the man or woman that we want to be. It's no different than exercising our bodies regularly so that we can be fit. Exercise is a deliberate action that we take to engage ourselves with the world in such a way that we have better ends. All I'm doing when I control my communication, my speaking, my thinking, is exercising my mind towards higher ends, and my behavior as well. All right, those are my 7 objectives. Now, my 33 principles. Just recently added the last one, the second to last one. Number 1 is the principle of war. To always be fighting against propositions of truth, including the ones that I've already onboarded as true, because I don't want to be holding on to things that are not true, or bringing them on board. 2, the principle of reason, and the sub-principles of honesty, objectivity, doubt, and humiliation. Reason is the tool that I use in the aforementioned war, so that I make sure that I'm not believing things that are not true. I use a commitment to honesty, a desire to be objective, a training to be a skeptic, and a readiness to accept the humiliation when I discover that I'm wrong. Number 3 and number 4 go together. Number 3 is called the homunculus. It's a funny old word that describes a man within a man, or a woman within a woman. I use it as a label for my consciousness, because I don't think I have a soul. I don't think any of us does, nor do I think that God exists. As a result, with no agency looking after us and nowhere to go after death, all I've got is my consciousness, which seems to reside, feels like it resides right behind my forehead, a little back here, between my eyes, be a little back there. So that's why it's a little man within the man. The next, I'm not done with the homunculus, but the next principle is called, another funny name, the anchor hold. And the anchor hold simply describes that the homunculus is trapped in my head like a man trapped on a rock in a raging sea, or a calm sea, or whatever the kind of sea you want, just the sea you don't want to get into because you'll die. He can't, if he gets in the water, he'll be dead. So too, if this body fails, my homunculus will go with me. And that death will be absolute, never again to come, no afterlife to follow, no reincarnation, oblivion forever. Number 5 is the home of good and evil. With no God and no absolute right or wrong, we are left with the hard work of determining what is right and wrong and what is good and evil on our own. It's a very important and very adult thing to do, to make the hard work to come up with the categorizations of what constitutes good and bad and wrong, right and wrong. To my mind, I've identified virtue as being the measurement, the gauge, the dial, if you will, of what constitutes right and wrong. And what's right is what improves the well-being of thinking creatures, and what's wrong is what decreases that well-being. It's a sticky, complicated thing. Requires a lot of thought and thinking. And what's good is what actively pursues those, and what is evil is what actively negates these ends. It can be done. We can work from a secular perspective and come up with not just good and right and wrong, but good and evil even. And I call that the home of faith. The home of faith being our brains. No. I call that the wrong thing. The home of faith is a cave in the desert. The home of good and evil. You can read my book if you want to learn more about the home of faith, although actually I don't talk about it in the book. I reference it, I think, briefly. You have to look at my other writings for that. Spotted it last week. I was out with Parker in the desert, and we actually saw the home of faith a quarter mile away, but we didn't go there. It was too far. Next is the principle of purpose, which has 3 sub-principles: biology, virtue, and mission. My purpose in life is to be biology, a good husband and father, fulfilling my mandate of reproduction. I also have a purpose of being a virtuous man, as I've already described and laid out the ends of virtue as the improvement of the well-being of thinking creatures. And then 3, my final purpose, my personal purpose, is the commitment to whatever personal activities that I want to do. And for me, at this point, it's mostly just sharing the message of the story of going alone and the message of the Good Life Creed. A creed that actually works, actually can yield a better life if we maintain it, but it's hard work. Number 7, I think, I'll just say next from now on. The next principle is called the atomic principle, a reminder that the universe is made of bits and pieces, atoms and molecules, and these are falling to pieces. So too, you and me. Soon we're going to dissolve away after death. The next principle is called maturity. The principle of nature. a recognition that everything has some particular nature. And it's good to recognize what that is so that we can be in, our expectations can align in better accord with the reality of how things are. For example, it's the nature of Huntington Beach on a stormy day in winter for the waves to dig channels just past the initial surf line that a swimmer can fall into and have to swim back out of as they get swept along the beach. It's also the nature of my work and my coworkers to have their ways. It's the nature of days to go particular ways. It's the nature of life cycles to have their characteristics, etc. And if I can see those things and spot them before I get there, I can do a better job of mitigation and setting expectations, mitigating what does occur, and managing my the end results. Okay, the next principle is called, funny name, the pirate ride. I got that from early rides when I was a kid through Disneyland's Pirates of the Caribbean with the little animatronics there. It's a simple principle that suggests that we don't have free will, that these seeming decisions that I'm making to have sipped that coffee just then, although it feels like I'm willfully choosing to do it myself, in fact, the universe at large is pushing me and prodding me in an unconscious, unmindful way. It's more like just the way that a bit of foam on the raging sea gets pushed around in the wind. The foam doesn't have any will. It's just reacting to the universe around it. So to us, although it sure does feel like we have will, I don't necessarily. First, I thought it was by degrees that maybe we had less and less will. Now I'm pretty much convinced that we don't have any will. Now, I can't prove this. If you ask me to demonstrate this, I'll have to throw up my hands and say, I just believe it on faith. And for that, I sin. So this is the weakest part of my good life creed. I have no way to demonstrate that free will is an illusion, yet I believe that's the case. In that way, I'm in bed with the believers, as funny as that sounds, because I too have faith. All right, the next principle is called maturity, and it has 3 sub-principles. I did that yesterday too, huh? The 3 sub-principles are wisdom, fortitude, and integrity. Maturity is the state that we arrive at when we've collected life experience, both successes and failures, and then we have the fortitude to do better in the future, to avoid the mistakes and to capitalize and build upon and repeat them, the successes. We then enjoy a life of integrity, where our life end results are an alignment and match for our maturity and experience, our wisdom, if you like. Next comes a couple, 5 principles that go together, I think. These are temperance, life will not go well, the horror show, that which must be borne, and the feast of offal. Why do I feel like I'm missing one right here? Those are the 5, I know, but I feel like I'm missing one. There might be a little like connective tissue between those 3. So here in the book, near the back, there's that chapter. Here it is. Just making sure I didn't miss anything. I sure did. I missed 3. Good gosh. Let's do these 5 because I laid them out, and then we'll come back and do the 3. I really missed them. Temperance, our self-control, our ability to control our consumption of everything. Life will not go well. Every day is going to have speed bumps and hardships. The horror show. Sometimes those speed bumps and hardships will rise to the level of life-destroying things. Pain to the nth degree. Suffering that constitutes what I call the horror show. And I could list you all kinds of things, but it breaks my heart to do so. I think you get the idea. 4, that which must be borne with an E, carried, borne, etc. What we have to bear is the fact that life won't go well, and we have to bear the fact of the horror show, horror happening to us and to those around us. And then finally, the feast of offal, the waste and byproduct when we're upset, when we've had enough and we can't take the pain anymore. I try not to visibly produce that and spread that upon my family and loved ones and coworkers and friends. I try to hold it inside and dissipate it elsewhere. And likewise, when others are spewing out the feast of their own, I'll offer them a tissue or a shoulder to cry on, but I won't consume it because it only poisons us. Those are the 5. Now going back, there's 3 before that. These are the social principle, public speaking, the social principle, the principle of family, and public speaking. The social principle has 3 or 4 sub-principles. These are diplomacy, justice, and integrity. Didn't I already use integrity? Diplomacy, justice, and conspiracy. Yeah. The social principles suggest that we should work together to build a better state. We should use diplomacy to hammer out our differences, to identify and define what constitutes justice, and then to link arms to conspire to make that true. The principle of family suggests that we need a base and a source of connection. Now, a family isn't just the nuclear family. It can be the family we choose as well. And I want to thank Evelyn for asking me a question about that the other day that helped me to remember that, yeah, family isn't just the traditional sense of it. It's more than that. It's good to build that. Otherwise, we wind up kind of alone and how do I describe that? I think our biology is such that we do better in a village. We do better with our people. And I think scientific studies will demonstrate that as well. Then the third one is the principle of public speaking. It's a reminder to learn how to communicate well and to listen well too. And the sub-principles here are best words, choosing the most appropriate words for the situation. Well, let me look it up. Prudence, filtering our communication through our values. Felicity, filtering our words and our ideas through our feelings to flavor them. It's like seasoning. Eloquence, gained of practice. And then rumor and gossip, which are 2 things to avoid. Okay, now I kind of got myself all tossed and turned there. Let's get back on track. The next principle is the principle of distraction, followed by the principle called agency and the great indifference. Distraction is what we do throughout our lives so that we don't have to see that we're alone in the universe as a species, or as life on Earth, that there isn't any God looking after us, that it's up to us to work hard to make a better life. We distract ourselves with everything that we've got in our lives, all of our activities, all of our hobbies, all of our work, all of our family, everything. It's good to take a break from that, to go out and look at the universe square, to recognize the emptiness that's out there, and then to come back and build a family and build a home, and build a set of values, or your own creed. You're welcome to borrow mine if you want, but build your own creed that you can use to live a better life in the brief bit of time that we have left. So those 2 principles together, the great indifference being that emptiness out there, that thing that comes when you go alone. The best seat in the house is the next principle, and it reminds me to try to be okay with who I am, where I am, and what I'm doing, at all times trying to be better at the same time. Then comes a series of 4 principles that go together. These are the restless man, the path of wildness, the great life adventure, and the risk of avoiding risk. The restless man or woman is a person who feels some desire for some adventure in life, the want to go somewhere and do something and really experience living. The path of wildness is the juncture between the current life we're in and the new life that we want to experience, or the new adventure that we want to have. And the great life adventure is that adventure that results of having stepped upon the path in earnest and embarking on that new life. The risk of avoiding risk is the difficult challenge of balancing the safe and the sane, the life that we want to live, the adventure we want to live, with the security, comfort, and familiarity of a home and a family and a career and children, etc. It's tough to balance both, to have both. But it can be done. My message mostly is for the young, the teens and the 20s who are just starting out. If you are in that position, then maybe you could consider a recommendation to get your degree, get your bachelor's degree, and then take the remaining years until you're 30 for yourself. Go out and have an adventure, a great life adventure, and then come back and start your career. You'll be a little bit behind. Your peers that went straight from college to career may have a home and a family and are one or two rungs up the career ladder ahead of you, and they always will be, perhaps, unless you're an exceptional person in some way and will fly ahead at the workplace, as some people do. But be content with always being a step or two behind, because you made an investment in the deep risk of stepping upon the path of wildness and having a great life adventure, which will give you a less tangible satisfaction and sense of completion deep inside, a peace, especially in the later years of midlife, where you wonder, did I miss something? No, you didn't. You gave yourself your adventure early. And trust me, if you wait, it's hard, and it's harder every year. And there's a point after midlife when you kind of can't do it. The best you can do then is some hollow effort at achieving that desire. And the desire tends to not go away. It becomes more plaintive and pitiful in a way. Pitiful for its desire, its want, and our recognition of our inability to do it anymore. Or maybe pitiful is too hard a word, but it seems to fit. Could certainly try. I'm trying to dig myself out of that hole, right? I mean, it sounds like I'm consigning those of us that wait to a dead-end one-way street. It doesn't mean that life is dead-end or one-way. It just means that one particular ambition, the desire for a youthful adventure, is now out of reach. And I don't know how you can get that back. You can't have a youthful adventure in your 50s. You have an adventure in your 50s. I know that one might argue that it's a state of mind, but I think you can't undo your wisdom. A lot of that comes of the value that comes of an adventure in our youth is the foolish mistakes that we make, the consequence of these, the lessons that come of that. And we're too smart and too wise and too rich and too fearful and too timid and too much in pain when we're old to be prepared to embark at that level. That's what I think I mean. That is what I mean. All right, carrying on. The next principle is called sin and damnation. There are 8 sins in my worldview, and these relate to being an untrue person, or believing things for bad reasons, or being someone who spreads rumor or trades in gossip. Enumerated, these 8 are falsity, credulity, faith, superstition, dogma, authority, rumor, and gossip. Check out the book if you want a more detailed examination of what they are. That's what I should do more often. I should say, check out the book for more details. And I do have another book that I've written, but I just haven't published yet because I still need to edit it, called The Good Life, where I go into much greater detail about all this stuff. Although I bet it's going to take me 5 years. I bet I'm not going to finish that book until I get back to Japan and have a lot of good long stretch of free time to edit. It's kind of like more the appendice, the book-length appendices to going alone to the Good Life Creed. It is the Good Life Creed laid out in all of its detail. All right, next is complete oblivion. That's the next principle. After death, if there is no God, there's no soul, there's no heaven or hell, then after death is oblivion. We'll never see our loved ones again. We'll never have a chance, if we won't see them again, we won't have, after death, we won't have a chance to reconcile our differences. My mom and I, our relationship will never get any better than it is in the life that we have here and now. And we'll also see no final justice, because there won't be anyone to have justice applied to or bestowed upon and no justice, anyone to met it out. So work on these things now in the life that we have. Then comes the bullseye aim, shooting square for the mark, but usually missing. Just a reminder throughout the day that that's what to expect in every meeting, every email, every dispatch, every communication, every phone call. Strive for the mark, but expect to miss by some degree, and be happy when we get the mark. Not disappointed when we missed. What reasonable person gets upset that they don't get a bullseye at darts every throw? It's the opposite. We expect to miss. We're delighted when we hit. I try to take that approach to life in general now. Next is the uphill climb, moving upward steadily every day throughout my life. I want to finish the day with a more expansive view on life than I did yesterday. Getting another chapter through this book will certainly do that, and that's enough. Arena and utility is next. Life is an arena where we play out this ambition of life, and we use our objectives and principles as tools along the way. I like to think of it like a gladiator's arena, and I've got the tools hanging at my side like weapons, and I can pull it out, and I've got my shield and my sword and battling whatever. You know, if we practice every day and spar and have our tools sharp, then we're going to be in good shape for the exercise. Here's that tricky one, the second to last one. Nothing is enough. I created this one in order to remind myself that I'm better off with less, to buy less, expect less, do less in various degrees, all the while striving for improvement. It doesn't mean I sit on the couch and watch TV. It means I work hard, but I try to get by with less. Nothing, pardon me, is enough. The emphasis on the word is. And in the book, this principle is significant enough to me, even though I haven't worked it out yet, that I asked my daughter Emily to illustrate this chapter, The Good Life, with an image of that rock. There it is. Nothing is enough in a desert. This is also the principle that is either the home or maybe just a temporary home. My reminder to exercise improved self-discipline, mental self-discipline. Last principle is the principle of fun, a whimsical, pleasant principle to round things off, and a reminder to enjoy the day today, to enjoy the anticipation of tomorrow, the plans for tomorrow, and to enjoy the remembrance of yesterday. So for today, I'm going to enjoy finishing this, and I'll also enjoy laying out what I'm going to do for the day, going through my meetings, attending to my work. I'll enjoy the 2 breaks that I get, one 20-minute break in the morning and another 20-minute break in the afternoon where I'll read my book. If the weather clears a little bit, I'll walk the dogs up and down the block. I'll have a nice lunch time, and I'll enjoy more reading then. And I'll enjoy in the evening wrapping things up and going to the beach and making a run into the sea and maybe falling into a hole and the sea being swept along and out. It's the out part that's a little scary. As for remembrance of the past, I'll dwell maybe a little bit on the pleasant holiday experiences that we had. Remember maybe some old memories. Maybe I should keep some old photos around and look through the photos. That'd be a good thing to do. And then for the future, I'll think about the upcoming trip that my wife and I are going to take in February. I hope that she'll go. I'm a little worried that Yumiko might. She's very worried about work, about folks being able to attend to things while she's gone. I think otherwise we'll go. I hope that she won't let that stop us. If that's okay, if that happens, we'll go another time. But I'll anticipate that it's going to be a fun trip, and I'm actively working to make it happen and develop an itinerary and lay out the plans. Taking it more by by the horns and being proactive. Having fun, enjoying life, enjoying today. Then I'll get on the Discord and I'll talk to people there and share about the ideas, and I will, and I'll talk to my niece and nephew and my family. All right, I think I've done enough with the good life. Now let's go on to finish off my plans for today. I'll finish this, I'll hit the stop button, I'll upload it, I'll type out a little bit of a message as I upload it to Facebook, then I'll read my Bible, and then I'll feed the dogs, walk the dogs. No, I won't walk the dogs, it's raining, so I'll just open the door and let them go outside. Then I will prepare for my work day, get the computer fired up, all my applications in place, and then I'll sit down and read my book some more until I start work at 6:30 a.m. Let's see how much closer I can get to the end of the chapter, having a little goal in mind. And then I'll go through the day. I'm going to work hard all day. I'm going to get through my meetings. I'm going to attend to them. I have a standing desk. I've been keeping it in the up position more, standing through the day, focusing on my meetings, forecasting what they're going to be like, and then plowing through. And it's having really good results. And then when I'm finished, I'll wrap things up. I'll go to the beach and run into the sea. Come home, have a delicious dinner with my wife. We're watching the Akasaka Kid, a Japanese movie about a gentleman, a comedian named Takeshi in Japan. It's very good. And then I'll go to bed and have a good night's sleep. And with that, I'm done. Thank you for joining me. Be safe, but not too safe. And now, my life is done.